All right, so do you want to introduce yourself first and foremost?
Yeah, my name's Flyboy, and I do a little of modding, mostly for data, but I do some model as well, mostly for skinning.
What's your like experience with 3D modeling? Like how do you know what you're talking about? Do you It's just for
Well,
fun?
I spent a lot of time looking at professional 3D models with my ex. She was a 3D or she is a 3D animator. So I learned a lot of things when it comes to what's a good patterns and what to expect for a good model and a good, well, especially a UV map. I spent a lot of time with those.
All right, so you can start wherever you want. I assume we're going to be looking at a lot of the Le Mans hypercars, and then talk a bit more about like the welding on the um, 2021 cars, and maybe you could get a comment as well on the high poly counts for the steering wheels, because at least to me, I don't know why SimDream would put so much effort into the steering wheel, especially on the back with like the quick release, why those have so many polygons compared to the rest of the car, which is especially the quick release is something that you won't even really see. So yeah, we can start wherever you want to.
Yeah. So the uh, when you started with the
Welding.
frig with the welding, yeah. So we're gonna start with the tattoos here. This is an official KS car, so this is what we're aiming to have when we make a mod for AC is something similar to what a Kunos would make. So we're gonna use these as an example, and I'm also gonna go with the fact that it's a single seater to have access to some parts. So you'll notice that there's a pretty clear pattern when it comes to these, a regular pattern when it comes to the mesh. It's not really wild, and it follows the shape of the car pretty well. This is a very efficient way of making a model. This is what you'd expect from a professional modeler. Now, what I wanted to focus on for this example here is you notice that you have these regular patterns for these large stretches, and then as we meet two large planes together, we have this curvature here, and for that we have extra meshes to add some curvature to it, and that helps smooth it out on the model, so that we get something like this instead of just having two pieces that essentially just collide.
Make a 90-degree angle. It makes
That's
it
right.
curved,
So you see here, there's no curvature on these parts here, so there's no welding, and so we don't have those extra meshes. But up here on the side pod, like we were talking about, it
Mm-hmm.
does have it. So on the RSS model, you'll notice that there is welding between these two parts here, and you'll notice because of the curvature around these two carbon weaves. So you got this curve that goes along the seam, and that's shown by the meshes that you have here. And now when you have two parts that aren't designed to go together and that are kind of just put together, you can see those here when it comes to the suspension arms, that these suspension arms and I'm not really sure what you call this, but this
Like
foil,
cover, yeah.
yeah, it's they don't have a hole in it like they would in real life, so they just collide.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you get these stuff Jesus, these stuff. You don't get any welding between the parts like this.
Yeah. Do you want to pull up the SimDream model as well, just so we can have a closer
Yeah.
look at it?
I'm going to point to the AMR 22 because that's the one that had the most comparisons with.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see it's also a high poly model.
But if you look at the
And
brake
there's no
duct
welding
again,
here
yeah,
between the brake duct. And so you notice that it's just two flat planes just colliding
intersecting.
together. Yeah. So there's no curvature like you would have here or say at the front of the wing. Oh geez. At the front of the wing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll see. Like it's
Oh
just
my gosh.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah, so this looks like an asset that was got from somewhere else or made for something that wasn't the game.
because
Uh,
like if you look too,
yeah.
if you look back at the
Oh
quick
yeah.
release, that is like insane. There's,
Like,
I don't see at least why they would feel the need to have
you don't
so
need to have that
many.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Do they reduce it with the? Okay,
Yeah.
but this is clearly done with a program that would reduce poly count
Mm-hmm.
rather than manually making another model. When you make low poly like a level of detail, that's what LOD stands for. When you have
Mm-hmm.
different LODs, you can do it the quick way where you have a program that'll just like half and like overall it'll half all the polys and like assume where they would go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you could also just manually make one.
So
and well, obviously a lot more demanding.
yeah, so what's your thought, I guess, while we're looking at it, what's your thought on the poly count? So do you think if, let's play devil's advocate, why would SimDream want so much detail in the steering wheel, especially on the quick release? It doesn't really make sense, does it?
I think the reason I would expect to have a lot of detail on the steering wheel is because it is a part of the cockpit, and when you're racing, that's the part that you're in, so you're going to
But
want
also,
detail.
but the quick
Um,
release is the main thing. Like you don't
yeah,
see that. It's kind
well,
of
not just the quick release, but the back of the wheel too. Like it's
yeah.
overall, like it doesn't need to be as high poly as it is. Like I said, it seems like it comes from someone else made it, or that it was made separately. Like a whole bunch of people were working on this project, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just a different person that went ham on it, and then they just threw it in.
Mm-hmm. So also on the welding really fast, do you think like playing first play devil's advocate, but then also play like this could like if it could be a sign of something being stolen or like things being put together as Legos as I called it.
Well, again, that's what I think it would be. Is I think that it's due to that having a whole bunch of modelers that were working on this project. I mean, they put out a lot of projects or mods at once,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not easy. I'm working on one for a group right now, and it's taking us days just to even decide what we want to do. So when it comes to modeling this fast, you're going to want a lot of man hours on it, and it's the type of thing that you would have split up between a bunch of people. Now, looking at how the rest of the cockpit is low poly, like this wall here, I would expect that to be low poly, and so is the leg joint here.
Mm-hmm.
That's normal. I just don't see why there is such high poly count for the rest of the model. Like the seat and the wheel, and like you said, the quick release, the back of the
Mm-hmm.
wheel does not need that much of a poly count.
Yeah, so guys, just as once again as a quick reminder, this is not us saying that these are 100% stolen for the assets that we did look at and find. None of them were matches for the 2022 cars, just covering myself legally for defamation, so SimDream doesn't actually have a legal right to take this down. We're not saying that these is proof that it's stolen or that it's not proof. This is just observations and very valid points as well.
That's absolutely right. When we looked at the models to cross compare between all the other models that we could find online, we didn't find any that matched or even came close to matching these models.
Well, the Alpine
So
was pretty close in terms of looks, but
the Alpine was the closest, but it still had various patterns that didn't seem to match.
mm-hmm.
Because when you look at a mesh, you can add polys, like you can double the poly count with a machine. You can half it, but when you take a model and you physically change it, then you notice that it's actually different. Because the patterns are made differently person to person.
So I guess I should, yeah. So the
I
patterns
guess you
I
could call it
know,
style.
yeah. So the patterns I know are triangles, but what sets the pattern? So like if you look on the, I guess like the nose we're looking at, like right under the halo, it's like, I guess it would be right triangles. I guess it would be how the triangles that have 90-degree edges. What would set them from being diagonal in terms of being like, as you can see, where it kind of curves down like to the right there? How they're more three-pointed angular triangles. My
Yeah.
geometry teacher is going to yell at me right now. But
So these are all polygons. That's the term when you make like a model, and you can often make a model out of squares. A lot of models are made out of squares actually nowadays, but Assetto Corsa only supports tris. So when you make a model for Assetto Corsa, it needs to have triangles. So if you have a model that has squares, you're gonna have to subdivide it into squares.
or in
Also, people
triangles,
who
you mean?
generally model in squares need to have n-gons and stuff for weird shapes, where you
Mm-hmm.
have a whole bunch of points meet at once. But when you have a regular pattern like you have on the nose here, that's normal. That's what you want. You want to be as regular as you can. But this is what I would give as having personality. This is what someone made a little outside of the box.
Mm-hmm. So would you? Is there any like machine like algorithm or like a quick easy way for SimDream to change those patterns, like because the big thing that disproved the Alpine wheel was that the patterns of the polygons were different. Is there anything that they could do that would change those patterns besides like downscaling the model, where they could keep the same quality but change the patterns? I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh, really?
Oh, you're
Oh,
back.
is it back? Okay. I
Yeah.
was
All right.
saying, so is there any way, like any like machine like algorithm? I don't know how you fully downscale 3D models, but is there anything that SimDream could do to keep the same resolution of the model but change the patterns?
Uh, Not really. You'd pretty much have to. So you can take the model and you can start a new model, like, and have the old model underneath, and having that model underneath, you could trace over it essentially with blocks, with tries,
Mm-hmm.
as you go through it. So you would have the same shape, and like in art, it's tracing, right? So it's
Yeah.
not. It's a bit of a gray area, but it is technically a different model.
Okay. All right. All right. That's good. I think that is there anything else you want to add about the 2022 cars? Anything that you find interesting or that you think we should share?
Not really. They actually have a really good layout for the map, the UV map. So I just want to say that like whoever
Mm-hmm.
made the model, it's well done on the UV map.
It's just funny looking at the triangles and how the wheel is just solid white.
Well, even the halo and stuff, like
Yeah.
it's wild.
But the halo is like really curved though, so that I feel does make a bit more sense, but I don't know. We'll take a rain check on our personal opinions on the look, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think that covers the 2022 cars. If you want to move over now to the LMH cars, this you can show that this. I mean, I've literally said like one of the biggest things is you can just look at them and they are literally identical, but we can of course show wireframes and things like that. That's just easy proof. I think the Turbo Squid ones have like the 3D polys, like the 3D model with the
Yeah.
lines on it, so that'll be really good
I'm
for
only going to be
showing.
comparing to the pictures that they have though, just for
Yeah,
simplicity. Yeah.
because we're
But yes,
paying for those
that's what we're
models
gonna
is a
check.
lot.
It is. Wow.
78,000 polys, and that's a lot. So
Well, that's not 78. That's 787.
oh yeah, you're right. So that's
Yeah.
a lot. So that already
Yes.
suggests
Yeah.
that
Let's give you a perspective.
yeah. I mean, there's there. You could go to the Kunos LMP1 cars because that's probably
Oh yeah, that's
better.
right. What would that be called? The
Just look up.
R18.
Yeah, you can use that.
So let's look at this. So well, 239,000, and that's
Pretty
you can
good.
look at this model and you can see it looks fairly empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we go over to the what was it, the Glickenhaus,
Mm-hmm.
we'll notice that it has 3 times the polys, and it shows.
That's
It is a much higher
immediately
resolution model.
yeah, but that's immediately a red flag. I've definitely heard and know that something has been ripped from somewhere else.
Yeah. So a model of this resolution would usually only be used for like renders and stuff like that. When you want to have something that looks pretty. This is not normally a video game model because of the number of polygons. When you have
Mm-hmm.
a video game model, you want to make it as optimized, so as few polygons as you can. But anyways, let's have a look at the model compared to the one that we can find on Turbo Squid. So I went with the subdivision level 2 because it's the closest to it. If we go to subdivision level 1 and level 0, they are just lower poly models.
Yeah.
Now, we're also going to compare the LODs and the level of details, and those are going to be the other subdivision levels.
Mm-hmm.
But this first one is the highest resolution. And we're going to start by pointing out on the front fender here, you'll notice that there's some intricacies, let's call it,
Mm-hmm.
near the headlight. And if we go look on the SimDream model, we'll notice that they are also here on this model. Now, again, it's harder to see because everything has been subdivided into tries rather than squares like on this model.
Mm-hmm.
But that can be done through an algorithm that was not done by hand. Brought something up on the rear.
Mm-hmm. You can look at
So,
it was the rear wing, I think you looked at, like the edge at the
oh no, that
bottom.
was on the
Oh, Alpine.
007 or the
Oh.
GR010, I think. I think
The
It was the
GR010,
gas
it
cap.
was just you, it was just the AOs
Oh
are the
yeah,
exact same, so it was
without a
just like
chance.
a.
Yeah, so we've got the same pattern here. You can see, you notice how it curves?
You
It's
can
kind of like
zoom
a
in
radiating
if you
out.
need to.
Can I?
On Google, if you hit the three dots at the top.
Oh,
Oh, never mind. I won't zoom in the image. That's
yeah.
dumb.
But you can see the lines here on the gas cap coming out from the gas cap, like shell. You can see the same lines here.
All right.
Yeah. So there
So
is a chance that they got that from the same. Actually, I'm pretty confident in saying that it's from that Turbo Squid listing.
it's 100%.
Yeah.
I'll feel comfortable saying that legally.
And looking at the licensing, they are not allowed to use it for commercial use in the license on this listing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a chance that they were able to talk to the creator, pay a higher price, and get different licensing. But if I were to go out, buy it and then upload this exact model just like that for $99, I would not be allowed to do that, and I'd be liable for it.
What also does point out, if you want to go on to their website really fast, if you go on actually you have it open, don't you? The listing for the Glickenhaus. I mean, you could do any of them.
Okay.
If you go on it, if you look at like the credits, they'll say that their 3D modeler made it. So I think that would at least point towards them not. You can just, it's on the second page, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It would point,
Oh,
yeah, it would point to them not talking to the creator, because if they would claim it as their own, if you look at the 3D models Dominic, and it also says scratch made 3D model, so I think that would also kind of debunk potentially that they would do that, because if they talked to the creator about it, they could just say that that's the creator who made it, but they put their own 3D modeler.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, and I already
Doesn't seem
talked
to be
about it too,
theirs.
but you can talk about how stupid the work in progress screenshots are.
Actually, I don't think I've seen them. Are
If
they
they're on the
here?
dev blog. You
Oh,
clicked on
okay.
it for a second. I don't know what you. Yeah. So if you scroll down, they'll have not in-game shots, but if you scroll down further, they do a lot of 3D renders, which is funny.
Oh, yeah.
But if you go down onto the second page, they have a ton of. I know they have a ton of the Glickenhaus as well of that. So it's like
Yeah.
they're trying their best.
They definitely tried. This does seem to be. I mean, this is the model. You can see
Yeah.
just straight away. I think the interior. I don't think that's included.
Yeah. So
Let's see.
maybe they did model that.
Yeah, I don't think the interior is included. This is, yeah, it's just exterior. So there's a chance that they modeled the interior there. So I'll give them that. Because I can't verify that.
Yeah.
But the exterior here, I mean, you could tell, it's it's pretty much the same.
And
With a smoothing effect applied.
I don't want to also I don't want to. We've already covered the. If you want to go to their dev blog, you can just hit the top one at the top of the page, the dev blog, and it'll be there.
Yeah.
If you scroll down, I said this in the video too, that they have tried less to make it look like they're actually making it. Again, presuming that these 2022 models, or at least parts of them, are borrowed from somewhere. All of their work in progress screenshots, if you scroll down, are 3D renders of the models.
I could take this into Blender and achieve a very similar result myself.
So
It wouldn't be exact because I'm not the creator of this, but it would be using the file that they have supplied. It'd probably be the same.
So, because you could do, because I just know Photoshop in Blender. Is there if you've ever used Photoshop, has like the eye to where you can hide assets. You could probably single out models and just hide them, and then take that photo and then just put them back.
Absolutely. And worst case, like if the model itself isn't subdivided into objects, you can just delete meshes and just have it like that. Yeah.
All right. So do you want to move on to the Toyota? And then I don't really think, or Toyota or Alpine, you can pick. Besides that, it's the same story for all of them, minus the Peugeot. We should know.
What's the name of the Alpine A08?
Yeah. I'm pretty
no.
sure. It should be
Alpine.
called.
I have a lot of mods, so it adds up.
Nope. Just look up. It should have tag SimDream probably. So, I think it's A110. Did you type that? Oh, never mind. That's that one. Never mind. That's
SimDream.
Nope. Well, you can just
No.
go on to car. They're under their own brand. If you look up, it's the Le
So,
Mans Hypercar brand.
okay.
Actually, yeah, copy pasting that'll probably work. There.
Okay, there we go. Oh, A480. Okay.
Oh. Well,
Oh,
once
geez.
again,
Okay.
very high poly model.
Yeah. For the Alpine, let me pull up the data here. The Alpine. And again, we're going to look at subdivision 2 because it's a higher poly. And again, we're going to look at the headlight because it's a very distinctive location. So on the headlight here, we see on the official model from Turbo Squid, we see that there's these creases in the mesh around the corners.
Mm-hmm.
And we see those again on the SimDream model. And then another location that we could look at, oh, I can't move this around, is on the door. And we could see those same creases on the corners of the door. Now, this is a pattern, a style that I would consider to be pretty distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And considering also where the squares are and how they're pretty much horizontal all the way through. Yeah, it's pretty clearly the same model.
It also very clearly, as you say, been subdivided, I think is the word. Because it's not like they're very much cubes that have just had lines drawn through them.
Another thing, if this was done by hand, I can go ahead and assume that most of these would have the lines pointing the same way, but whatever algorithm they used, it seemed to not want to do it the same way. So if we go look at like an RSS, for example, they'll all be pointing the same direction. But we've got some in all directions. Anyways, and if we look on the Turbo Squid model, and we look at the license, it's the standard license with editorial use only. We can go look at the license itself in another tab, and it says under editorial use that we are not to use for commercial use.
All right.
So this is, again, unless they had negotiated something with the creator. In this case, it was Optical Dreamsoft.
And then
they shouldn't be able to use this.
Yeah, and then again, just like that, you guys can, I mean, again, all links will be down below. You can verify it, but you can take our word for it that, again, just like the Glickenhaus House, under the credits, they have whatever their 3D modeler's name is as the person who made it, and they claim it's a scratch-made 3D model, so yeah, same story for the Toyota. And the Peugeot is actually different, and my theory is that this model was not out yet, so either they had to make it themselves or they found it from somewhere else and we just can't find it.
Yeah, this model was made in October 26th,
and it came out like 22nd. I'm pretty sure they're mods, so they're probably punching the air.
Not only do they have to make the model, they also have to create the data and all that in that time. So they probably started about a month earlier before this model was even released.
So I think the biggest thing, we only have the Le Mans hypercars as stolen, but I think it's the principle that they are still very much blatantly ripping things that calls everything else into question.
Absolutely. And again, they do seem to be going on the right track with their other models, but that's only because I can't verify whether or not they're from a source. From what I can see, it is a fully independent model, not made by anybody else. And if that is the case, awesome, keep it up. It's good to see that they're working on it because they make so many mods. And often they're cars that aren't found anywhere else. I love the idea of having so many varieties of, especially for the Formula One cars. The RSS hybrid is okay, but it's one car, and with the new regulations, there's so many different variations. It's nice to have access to all of those.
And yeah, we can comment on that. How, if you from what you know, I don't know if, because you said you're working on a car model for a setup right now, I don't know if you're in a team or you're doing it by yourself. If you're in a team, it's probably even better to put out 10, if they did 10 fully scratch made models, especially with the detail like in the steering wheels and all that taken into account, playing devil's advocate that they are all fully 100% scratch made. That would take a ton of people to do all of that in 3 months.
That's right. Yeah. Well, 3 months is a fair amount of time. So it would take, I would assume that it would take a good month and a half to get all the models done. If you're going to have 4 or 5 people working on it, that's assuming that they're working on it as like a full-time job rather
Yeah.
than on their free time. I'm not sure what they've got for jobs. I know that they do hire people, so there's a good chance they
Or
went
they
through a
claim
hiring
to.
round recently. Yeah, well, I almost applied myself before I did some research into the company, and they seemed like they had something good going on from their listings, and I was really tempted. So I'm not sure if they changed management or anything, but it looked good, at least.
All right, so if finally I want to pass the torch on to the community as a whole, so how can people do this themselves? In Assetto, mainly, like what are things that they need to look for? And just, some of like the starter pack, if you will, for some basic knowledge on how to identify the assets that could be similar or the same.
Okay, well, let's look at the A480 like we're already looking at. One thing that we can check out right away is with this wireframe. So pressing W on the keyboard in the CM showroom will bring you to the wireframe. So if I press it once, you'll be like this normally when you open it up. Press it once, and you'll have this white wireframe with the textures underneath. And then if we press it again, we'll get to this black mesh where only the wireframe for the texture is shown. So this way you get a little more visibility into certain cabins. Now, using this, like we did today, we can go look at what the mesh is doing. Another option that we could do is if we click on, say, let me get a wireframe. So if we click on this body panel, I want to see what the mesh is for this body panel specifically in the UV map. Personally, I go to the car_chassis_AO, and I go view mapping right here, and then I load up in, I prefer 8K because that way you can zoom in on them. But generally 4096 is enough. And then it'll load up with this. Your computer will calculate it. And then you want to save that. And I already have it saved for this model, so I just called it AO. And then you can close that, and you can go have a look for it in your folder. And here we go. So if we wanted to look at the AO for this, actually the Turbo Squid model also shows it. So we can hop over to that. And the AO is here. So this is also another point of evidence that we can use.
Yeah.
If we compare the AO between these two models,
it's identical.
They are identical. So we can see that the layout overall is the same. And if we were to look at the mesh, if they showed it in the UV map, which they don't here, but if we wanted to look at that, it would be quite visible as well.
So the main thing I've picked up that you should look for is the patterns, as well as, like, since Assetto uses triangles instead of cubes, if there's things that are very like on, I think it was the Alpine, how everything is like 90 degree, like it was clearly once a cube map but has been turned into triangles. That's another point that you can look at.
Yeah, so you notice here that there's just a whole bunch of parallel lines. And if you would have a pattern that was with triangles from the start, from what you'd expect, again, I'll hop over to the tattoos. You'll notice that it has a lot less of that repeating pattern with the squares and a lot more of overall sizing.
All right. Thank you so much for all of your time and help with all this. You have been truly invaluable to this, and hopefully at the very least this video can spread awareness, because I even fell for the lie of like the development previews and all of that. So all the people in SimDream comments who are like, great work guys, I'm so happy you're doing all Scratch made now, like hopefully we can get this video to those people and share the truth out there. Again, I don't want anyone to go attack SimDream or, do anything to their website, anything like that. Just get the knowledge out there, because the main way to make SimDream stop doing this is to make their business model just unprofitable. As you saw that they're paying for 3D models, if they're not getting a return on investment on that, they're going to stop doing it. So I think that's the best way to counteract this, is to just spread awareness and not support them.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to have good models, good mods, you can find tons of them on Race Department. And generally, if you find it on Race Department, it is a reputable model or mod that you can work with.
And if you do find anything, please do report it. Make the community a better place.
Yes.
So thank you, man. If you want to plug any socials or anything like that, you can send me the links. I can put them in the description if you want me to, but you can also say them here.
If anyone wants to talk to me for whatever reason, you can find me on Discord with capital F Flyboy at hashtag 9595. So you'll be able to contact me through that. Otherwise, I'm also on YouTube under Flyboy, but I don't usually post there, so you won't find much.
All right, man. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you all for watching. If you got through the whole more in-depth portion of this video, yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully you have this knowledge now, and you can at least share the knowledge, if not the video, so we can, you know, once again put SimDream under the speculative light, because I don't think forgetting about them is the best course of action in terms of counteracting them. I think, if anything, we need to hold them accountable and have the community on them constantly. So, yeah, I hope this video can make a positive change in the sim racing community as a whole. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys.